Today, let's examine 10 signs that you're still a victim of emotional incest. So if you were indeed somehow taken over by your parents growing up emotionally, perhaps you're wondering if it still has an impact on you as an adult. Perhaps you haven't done any therapeutic work around this topic and you're not quite sure. So let's look at 10 signs that this is indeed carried over into your adult life. Now there's way more than 10 signs. I just sort of randomly chose these that I'm going to talk about right now, and these are in no particular order. So one common one is that no matter how old you are, what your chronological age is, you still feel like a child inside. You relate to the world from your heart like a child. Now on some levels this can be okay, having perhaps a naive, innocent view of the world, but if you're not able to handle adult problems or feel like you're an adult to be even able to handle adult problems, then that may be because you're relating to life like a little kid still because you were treated that way growing up. Your parents didn't want to help you find your wings and mature and be strong. They wanted to keep you down as a way to control you. They wanted you to always be their little mini husband or mini wife. So they weren't in the business of helping you grow up. Now as an adult, maybe with your friends, at a meeting at work, with other family members, inside you still feel like a 10-year-old boy or girl. Number 2, a sign that you've carried being a victim of emotional incest into your adult life is that you still relate to your mother or father like they have all the power, like somehow you have to bow to them. Well, now maybe you're a 35-year-old man or 40-year-old woman and you still feel as though mother and father hold all the power. I have to watch what I say. I have to still be in performance mode. Still feel like I'm walking on eggshells. On some level, even though you're a grown adult, you still melt around your parents, so to speak. You bow to them and you feel it inside. That's a red flag that this needs to be dealt with at some point in your adult life. Number 3, you're still a people pleaser in general, mainly as a coping mechanism. So there's nothing wrong with helping people when they need it. But to go through life as a coping mechanism because you have to deny who you are, which you had to do in childhood, by the way, push all the real you away, your thoughts, your opinions, and just sort of be there for others, please them. If you're still people pleasing as an adult, then this coping mechanism is a sign and a symptom that you were a victim of emotional incest. Number 4, maybe because how you were raised at home allowed you to be bullied in your younger life, perhaps at school or with your friends and so on. And now in your adult life, you're still aware that you allow yourself to be bullied, to be beat up a bit. Bullying sometimes goes along with being a victim of emotional incest because people can pick up on that energy that you don't have much of a voice. You're not able to advocate for yourself because you weren't allowed to or supported in advocating for yourself growing up. So when people pick up on this energy, this can continue into adulthood in many ways. Let's say especially at work. Bullied by your coworkers or during meetings, never taken seriously, or friends or family members treating you rudely or dismissively, or even worse. So if you still feel like you're being bullied, that relates to your childhood. Number 5, you allow people to overtalk you. Now this can be a bit confusing for people, but when you lose your voice when you're a kid because you were always silenced, nobody wanted to hear about the real you, they didn't want to hear your opinions, or for you to show anything authentic, then you grow up just thinking you have to be the listener. This then can create situations where people will overtalk us and just ramble on and on and on because we're kind of trained as little ones to just stand there and listen, right? We had to do that with our own mother and father growing up. It was all about helping them with their emotional needs, and of course they often would tell us their adult problems. And so we got used to that as kids, and now as adults, sometimes people will ramble on, and we're not aware that we can just walk away, put up a healthy boundary with that, or at least try to interject our own voice, our own opinions into the conversation. Number 6, in many areas of your life, you're aware that you're willing to settle for second best. Now this can range from anything to accepting cold soup at the table at the restaurant when you make your order, all the way to letting somebody else pick your career. You know, my father always wanted me to be an attorney. My mother always said I'd be a great golf pro, and I am a good golfer, but I never wanted to be a golf pro, make money off of it. So there's many ways we give up ourselves, including settling for second best. It's not what we really want. We may not even be clear about what we really want because we weren't helped to address our own needs and understand ourselves during our childhood. But if we are clear about that, we may dismiss ourselves because after all, we don't feel that important given how we were raised, and therefore quite often in many ways settle for second best. Number 7, in many ways you've lost yourself in relationships, friendships, marriages, and so on. You may be aware you're not on a level playing field with these other players in your life. Your husband or wife always gets their way. They don't compromise with you very often. Well, that's not healthy. Your friends generally pick where you're going to go and so on. After a while, they don't even check in with you about what you want. That's not healthy. You're aware on several levels the real you doesn't shine. You're wearing that mask that you had to wear in childhood. You're being inauthentic somehow, putting on a role. Now, this is nothing to beat yourself up about. It's just something to be aware of as you work on this, hopefully someday in therapy. This again goes back to your childhood training. So be aware if you feel like you're losing yourself with other important people in your life. Number 8, intimacy with a boyfriend or girlfriend, husband or wife scares you. Sex is generally not something you enjoy. Maybe to enjoy sex, you have to get drunk, get high, do it with the lights off, and so on. Now, of course, this all connects to that you couldn't be yourself in many ways during childhood. So now something that's as intimate as a primary relationship, sharing our feelings, being vulnerable, and of course, transferring over into our sex life, all this type of thing is likely going to cause fear because these are opportunities when we would need to share our true self, especially in a primary relationship, right? But we don't have the practice with that. We don't even know how to do it maybe, so therefore it frightens us. Number 9, because you had to swallow so much and be the chameleon and the wallflower and everything else growing up to survive your childhood, everything seemed very black or white. Either you completely hid yourself to get through the childhood to survive it, or you would blow up. At some point you couldn't take anymore and you would have a temper tantrum. So notice the black and white thinking with that. There's very little gray area. So now this transforms into many areas of our life, viewing life in all types of ways where it's either or, black or white. Either I'm going to give something 100% or just give up. This can filter into many areas. I'm just giving a few random examples here, but anything to do with rigidity, black or white thinking, that stems from your childhood because in many ways to survive the childhood, you yourself had to be black or white, either or. And lastly, number 10, you're aware that it's hard to hold on to boundaries in your life, healthy boundaries. In fact, you may even avoid situations like parties, social interactions, dating, for example, not because you wouldn't like to go, maybe you would like to go, but you're afraid that you're going to be taken over, so you don't want to go. And this, of course, ties into childhood because you couldn't have healthy boundaries growing up. And so therefore we bring a state of fear or anxiety into just living our everyday life because we're not sure we can create or hold on to healthy boundaries when we need it. We may go a bit into that black or white thinking I just mentioned where then we have to run away. We're not used to finding that middle ground, that middle area where we can still advocate for ourselves and be present and hold our own. So 10 quick examples of how some of the symptoms from being a victim of emotional incest will show up. Nothing to beat yourself up about this if this is happening in your life. These are just indications that you went through the mill. You had a rough childhood growing up. There wasn't room for you in many ways. So now pay attention to the symptoms like they're gold. You can learn from them. These are the things you want to talk about with your therapist. So please leave me some comments below. Maybe you'd like to add numbers 11 through 20, for example. Please subscribe to my mental health YouTube channel if you like these kind of videos. And until next week, this is Brad Shore signing off from Ask a Shrink.